Hey y'all, it's Melissa at Twin Oaks Farm in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad that you're here. We are raising chickens, producing poultry, and we're bringing you along from day 1 to day 42, giving you progress updates on every day of production of this meat bird flock, because we love to get the message out there that real good chicken comes from real chicken. It's raised in actual flocks from real live chickens. It does not originate in a lab. It doesn't come out of a bioreactor. And this is the real deal. This is how chicken is produced. So we have a lot we want to share in this video. This is day 20 of production for this flock of 301 Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens. And when it comes to meat chickens, Cornish Rock Cross in the poultry industry really are kind of the benchmark and gold standard for everything meat chicken. Everything meat chicken is basically compared to Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens. These birds just naturally grow very rapidly. So they convert feed to meat, and that makes them the top choice for meat production when it comes to poultry. So thanks for joining us. We want to talk about mainly 4 things in this video, so we'll be brief on them. We'll try to get through them. If there's ever anything that you feel we aren't thorough enough on, or you're just more curious about, leave us a note in comments, and we'll surely answer what we can, research what we need to, and I make an earnest effort to reply to all comments. And a little bit on the struggle bus, just right at the moment, I think I'm caught up on replying to YouTube comments. I'm a little bit behind on personal communications, but this is part of our real life, and we got to juggle all the real life things with it. So we just do our best. But if you have something that you feel like I'm just never addressing, and you're interested in raising poultry, or something that you think we're overlooking and you want to share with us, please do. We love it. We learn from the comments and the feedback as well. So with that said, about 4 things we want to look at, and we'll hit them kind of briefly, but that's just to try to stay in a reasonable time here on the video for you, because we appreciate your time and effort in supporting our channel. Please do subscribe if you haven't, and we appreciate the likes, and we'll even accept the dislikes if you're so moved. But just thanks for interacting with Twin Oaks Farm Poultry on YouTube. So we do want to talk about the bird's feed consumption. It's turned an important corner for a second time in production, and that's great. We also want to talk quickly about the placement of feed and water dispensers in a pen or in an area where you're raising meat chickens. Want to mention our assessment of the condition of the bedding material and the next action step with it. And also going to share with you a couple of pests that are giving us problems here in the barn, and one we're going to be aggressive with and one we're going to be patient with, and so we'll run that by you. So first, we're going to take a look at the production board to help us illustrate something with a couple of data reference points. So give it a moment here. It takes the camera a moment to decide to focus in, but these chicks were hatched on August 23rd, 2023. That was day 1. The first week, they were consuming 50 pounds of feed about every 3rd day. Each of these notes means one 50-pound bag of 22% value protein and the date it was given. So each entry is 50 pounds. So they consumed 50 pounds every 3rd day the first week. They turned a corner then, which was significant and desirable, to consuming 50 pounds each day. And so they've been doing that since day 7. And now we're down here on day 20, which is September 11th, 2023, and happens to be Patriot Day in the United States of America. And we seriously offer up and extend our gratitude for American patriots throughout history and in the modern era. So, so we were saying that these birds have been consuming 50 pounds of feed daily as a flock of 300 birds. So we keep expecting to see that consumption tick up a notch, because they're about halfway through production, and in kind of a very simplified description, you know, in 42 days, they need to go from the size of an egg to almost the size of a football. So we've still got, they've grown a lot, we know that, but they've still got a long way to grow and kind of a short time to get there, if you know what I'm saying. So we got to keep them growing, and actually growing is what comes naturally to them. So what we have to do is, as flock managers and producers, is keep the feed available at the quantity that they are able to consume it and want to consume it. So actually today, day 20, we put in 50 pounds of feed into the 7 feeders, distributed amongst the 7 feeders this morning. And so they have basically eaten all of that down to, we're just going to just look at a couple of these feeders as representative of all of the feeders. There's nothing left in the reservoir that holds feed in the feeder. It's all down in the tray, and all 7 of them are like that. So they've basically eaten 50 pounds of feed today. So we're going to put another 50 pounds in as the evening cools down. And we have a light on in our building all night. So our birds naturally stay on a circadian rhythm of about every 3-4 hours. They're up, getting a drink, eating, and that's when they manure, and then they rest. And so they're still able to rest, able to sleep. They naturally have settled onto that circadian rhythm because it works well with the natural processes that they need to meet. And so that helps with the growth pattern of having them finished and ready for production in 42 days. And even some operations accomplish that in 35 days. So 5-week-old birds, but we go out to 6. So they have turned that corner. We expect them to be eating now 100 pounds a day. And actually for the entire flock, 300 birds over 6 weeks, we expect to feed out 3,000 pounds of feed, because that is based on, we would expect a single bird to need 10 pounds of feed to be ready to process into poultry in a 6-week production cycle. And they, by seeing that move now to where they're able to consume 100 pounds in a day as a flock, we know that they're right on target for that feed consumption range that we need them to be in to finish in 6 weeks. So that's looking good. That's really an encouraging sign for the flock manager and producer. So now, quick note on placement of your feeders and waters throughout your birds area. So I will just tell you briefly, the 4 red and white feed and water dispensers that we see in the frame there, initially they got this size pen that they have now on day 17. And I set 4 waters there where you see the 4 dispensers in the frame. But we were finding that, and I put all the feed around to the outside. And we also had the single-gallon waters in here on the outsides. So I had a waterer here, and we were finding that that's the only water they were drinking significant quantity out of. They would empty that water here, and yet I had 3 other waters out that they would only consume, about a third of the water that was in there. So even while this tray was empty, they'd continue coming to it instead of going to where there was actually water. And that does happen with your birds. They kind of find certain areas of the pen that they like, or the light conditions and micro conditions within the area are just suitable to them, in one place versus another. So we do watch and are mindful of trying to get the birds to utilize the entire pen sort of evenly, and also of trying to make sure that they're drinking down the waters evenly and consuming out of the feeders evenly, because we don't want them, consuming water out of one, and meanwhile water is getting stagnant in another place, or consuming feed out of one place, and meanwhile feed is getting stale in another place and not being consumed. So we do try to keep it so they're consuming and using their pen and their resources evenly and uniformly. So I actually shifted feeders and waters today so that there's a big water in every 4th of the grower pen. And so this pen is not perfectly symmetrical, but I could still space those out. And then that shifted the feeders so that there's also multiple feeders in each 4th of the grower pen. And so I think that's going to work really well because they use things very evenly and uniformly today. So that is that. So if you're raising poultry, you can kind of influence where your birds are using their resources if you have multiple feeders and waters out for them. Now, assessing the bedding. So we're ready to add fresh bedding in here. We're going to be doing that this evening. So a lot of manure like this goes down onto the bedding from the birds. That's an example of manure that indicates well-being and good health in the birds, and we do monitor that. We have used 10 bags of bedding. We can see that here on our production notes. As of day 16, we had used 10 bags. By day 18, we thought we needed to add more. You can watch day 18 broilers as well as a bonus clip from day 18 and see where my husband decided to aerate the bedding material, and we actually got another couple of days out of what was already on the floor instead of putting more down right then. But now it's day 20 and we do need to add more bedding, so we're going to be doing that. You'll see fresh bedding in here when you tune back in for day 21. And last thing, we do have some pests in the barn. So one we're going to be kind of aggressive with. I'll try to show you here. We don't get a real good view of this, but we had a wasp nest up there. We thought we had eliminated it. We weren't effective. We thought we had eliminated the wasps and we would just wait and take the wasp nest down after this flock leaves, but we can see we were not effective. That did not work. There were wasps flying around again today, and they're using that nest, and they got to go. So we're going to get more aggressive with that. As it's cooled down, there's less wasp activity, and we're going to spray eliminator again and try to get rid of them. Now, a different pest, we're going to use a different tactic. We're going to let patience be our virtue. We can tell here where we've got some feed on a pallet that something's come up through the bottom of the pallet and probably chewed a hole in a bag. It's probably a random mouse that has either come in, like with the doors open through the day, or can dig up through the floor, because even though our limestone screening floor is compacted, it's still diggable. But we're going to use the feed that's on that pallet within 15 days. So we'll get to the bottom of the pallet and the bottom of the problem, and we'll deal with that. And in the meantime, we'll just clean up the mess that has been made and continue to monitor it. Thanks for joining us. Please join us on day 21. That's a wrap.